good afternoon, evening, whenever you are watching this. Welcome to the Fantasy Flyer. My name is Derek Wright. As with me is my co-host Taylor. Taylor, how you doing today?
Not too bad. This is as we said, flying at the hip. So
Yeah, no, and that's okay. We got to match the name and keep that. We got to keep that true to the show's heart. So we're flying a little from the hip here. Just kind of taking it into the football realm. We're getting ready for a brand new season. As always, I feel like August and September you really get pumping when it comes to football. You start running through OTAs and preseason. And there's nothing like getting a schedule ready and getting your Sundays in order, so to speak. So
for sure, yeah, and it's been a bit of a wild ride, especially for us with our fantasy dynasty fantasy league. Maybe we chat a little bit about that first before we get into things.
yeah, that's how. So this is our first show for anyone who can look back in history. So me and Taylor both met in a 53-man dynasty league. There are not many of them, but we are both part of one. It's always a fight. It's always a grind, except for like 3 months between like March and June. Those are like our off season. Everything else we're basically raring up, ready to go. And that's kind of how we both decided, hey, we want to do a podcast, and it just so happens we are in the same group. So now we've decided to unfurl our wings and fly away from the group for a little bit more generic football talk, as well as some dynasty and fantasy football talk. One thing I didn't ask you, Taylor. So we went through all of our pre-video meetings, so to speak. I never asked you, and it doesn't matter, but who is your favorite football team?
Oh, I feel like that would have been obvious from some of my team names in the league, but I'm a Patriots guy. Having grown up in New Hampshire, I'm Boston, New England all the way.
Okay, so that was since you grew up.
Oh yeah. I mean, there was probably some 49er rooting sprinkled in there from my uncle, but
that's bandwagoning now. We can't have that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, once I was more I don't want to say aware, but once I got a little older, I went with my dad's team, which was the Patriots, and then Boston for everything else.
You had a very happy 2 decades up until about 2020. Right?
Yeah. I mean,
Meanwhile,
go ahead.
Meanwhile, I'm a Cowboys fan, and I have had a very sad 2 decades, but that's okay. This starts with our own kind of football love, and it kind of spreads throughout the league. So I just was curious about that little note. So
that's always a good place to start.
Yeah, that is how the podcast takes its form to get here. The entire goal, really, of this podcast, for those of you watching, we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you paying attention. We want to get a little bit more fantasy focused, but also keep some real football in mind. Where fantasy meets the football field is kind of where we're going to kind of toe the line on each side. So going forward, we will relate things back to fantasy, but we will also talk about your injury news, your pickup news, your everything, just pregame news, postgame news. We will preview and review shows. And it turns out that we actually have our first game coming up in just 3 days. It is Labor Day today. Thursday is quite an opener, and we will talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. But we're going to start off with some news and notes. Taylor, you want to start off with our first one? I think it's a pretty easy one to say.
The Steelers named Mitch the starter. I kind of feel like I saw this coming, but I mean, there was rumblings. I mean, they obviously love their rookie there because he's a hometown guy, but Mitch has the experience. I think it just makes sense to me. But what are your thoughts on that?
I don't disagree. So I drafted Kenny Pickett in our dynasty draft a mere 2 weeks ago. The real climax of our offseason was that dynasty draft. I took Kenny Pickett at the 6th pick in the first round, which was probably a lot higher than most figured he'd go. But it was for the inevitable truth that he will I mean, he was the 20th pick in the first round. The Steelers just don't. Nobody wastes that kind of draft capital. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Uh, going through preseason, you saw that Mitch was there. He was playing well. And I kind of agree with you in that sense that it was you don't want to be surprised, but you are surprised, but you're not surprised. It's very on the fence. So I think Pickett, I think he'll be the starter. I said week 6 was probably about and it may even be a little later than that just by how well Mitch played. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think there was only like 4 passes he missed in like 3 games. So, and he only turned the ball over once. He had several touchdowns, was very connected with the offensive line and with his receiving core. So, no reason to not put the experience, like you said, the experienced guy at the helm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is like he had it, I don't want to say a good run, but he had a run with Chicago, and then we haven't seen him for 2 years,
2 years,
3 years. Yeah.
roughly.
Yeah, and so he's been kind of floating around and back up here and there, and who knows what experience he's gained in that, right? Didn't he back up Josh Allen for a year?
Yep,
So
Buffalo.
so yeah, so maybe he's picked up some things here and there. He's matured. He maybe I mean, I hope for his sake, he's better at, like you said, he only turned the ball over once in the preseason. So if he can get those things straightened out, if he can play well with the Steelers, I could see him playing the whole season. But to your point, they did just draft this rookie as the 20th overall pick. So we'll see. But I kind of have high hopes for Mitch. Not that I've ever really liked him per se, but yeah, I could see him doing well.
Doing well. I mean, there's 2 other side. Like obviously, he doesn't have a contract that requires him to start. It wasn't an expensive one. It was actually slightly above backup quarterback. So they kind of got. I think the Steelers front office kind of got a steal if he's going to perform like he did in the preseason. But the other surprising thing about this news is that the depth chart actually puts Kenny Pickett 3rd behind Mason Rudolph. Do you think that is something that indicates he won't start in the first half or maybe at all this season, or do you think that's just precautionary until he takes the helm?
It feels very old school to me. I mean, there you're gonna have to remind me of the head coach's name. I can picture him, but he's been there for so long. I just feel like that's
Tomlin.
part Tomlin, thank you. That's just part of his process. I think that Pickett is a far better talent than Rudolph. And I think that's process.
Okay, I don't disagree. Tomlin has this above 500 streak going
Yeah, yeah.
that was almost certain to be doomed last year and managed to break out a 9-8 season. So
Yeah.
I imagine that he's going to try and protect that as best he can. So that's the biggest news right there out of Pittsburgh. I would lead into our second little bit of news, which is Chris Godwin. It appears literally more on the breaking news side as of about 2 hours ago. He's expected to be ready Sunday for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers opening game against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. My Dallas Cowboys, where I'm sure if Godwin is ready, he will put up 175 yards on Trayvon Diggs. I guess in terms of fantasy, what do you say is your thoughts on this in terms of Mike Evans, even Russell Gage?
So I actually had some stock in Julio Jones. I was kind of hoping that he might show he still has something, but if Godwin's ready to go, I don't know how much we see that. And I mean, Gage was a huge, I don't huge isn't Brady went after Gage. So there's
Mm-hmm.
something there that Brady saw. Julio was the team deciding to grab a veteran that at his prime was incredibly talented. Who knows if he still has it? We didn't see it when he was with the Titans. He's been hurt the past 2 years. So I was throwing some flyers on Julio. But to answer your question, uh, if Godwin's playing, he, in my opinion, is their number one. Obviously, Mike Evans has been phenomenal. He's one of, or maybe the only player to have 7, 8 seasons of 1,000+ yards. So in a row, all of his seasons, I think, which is insane. So, but Godwin is insanely talented, and we've seen him be their number one. Um, Gage, I honestly don't know what to think. He had a couple of games with Atlanta. Um, if Brady likes him, maybe he's consistently part of the plan out there. But Brady liked Tyler Johnson. They let him go. I don't know.
Very, very coveted Tyler Johnson, as it turns out, as of a week or so ago. But yeah, I see. I mean, Godwin playing makes Russell Gage, and I think, like you said, I think Julio Jones is to a lesser extent, but it makes them both more or less fantasy irrelevant. Flyers, maybe. And you're talking DFS lineups. If it fits salary and you're down that way, I can't think off the top of my head of anybody who might be down that way, salary wise, who's going to probably benefit a DraftKings or a FanDuel lineup so much. But obviously Mike Evans is a solid. You almost want to call Chris Godwin a 1A and Evans a 1B, because you just know, especially with Gronkowski gone, Tom Brady is going to line up one of them in the slot and one of them on wide. And whether it's the Y, the Z, the X receiver, it doesn't matter. They're all, they're going to get targets. And so it's Tom Brady too, who didn't come back for no reason out of retirement. So I think it's important. And it's also nice to see that he healed up in what's rather quick. It was week 14, I believe, last year when he tore his ACL or tore his Achilles.
Yeah, I have week 15.
And it was week 15. So it still, you're talking 8-month to 9-month recovery, and now he's back to being cleared for full contact. So good to see that Chris Godwin is still holding his own on the health side of things. So that's good to see, and I think that'll be a good game too. Not to mention.
Yeah, no, totally. Side note, I tore my ACL back in the day playing soccer, and I had a pretty quick recovery. I mean, it's nothing like these guys, but you see people recover, like you said, 6 to 9 months is the window. 6 months, they're getting out there, they're practicing, they're doing their PT and whatnot. So I think they've got an established comeback plan for people who tear their ACLs in the NFL. It happens, unfortunately, too often. So they know what they're doing.
Used to be the curse of death when it came to a lot of football players, and in the past probably 20 years that's changed, which is really good for a lot of these players that are having to suffer through those injuries.
Yeah.
On to our next piece of news. I saw this earlier today. The Ravens have sent an upgraded offer to Lamar Jackson before the season starts. Lamar has made it publicly known that he will not do a contract in the middle of the season, and that's probably fair. But apparently the Ravens don't want to fully guarantee money to Lamar Jackson, and I just don't know if that's a smart decision. I think you may want to do that. I don't know. It's not like he's he's not Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's interesting that they're taking that stance. I mean, the guy's 2 years removed from an MVP season. So, I don't know what the thinking is there. He, as we've seen, is an incredible athlete on the ground. There's been talk of, accuracy concerns, but he's been getting the job done. And we saw with Allen, and maybe we'll see this year with Hurts, that people can improve their accuracy if they've been labeled an inaccurate quarterback. So I don't see why, we've seen how talented this guy is. He is, in my opinion, a franchise quarterback. I don't know why they wouldn't give him this guaranteed money and try to make that happen. Work with him, get the contract where he likes it, and then B, work with him as a player and develop him. And you're set. How old is this kid? Late 20s?
20. I want to say he's in that range. I want to say he's a year younger than Dak. I think Dak's 28. He might be 27.
Yeah.
That's a guess. That's a guess,
They
but
could have him
I'm not
for,
looking at his age.
yeah, they could have a solid quarterback in a league where quarterback is, I won't say everything, but everything, like for 5+ years if they want to keep doing it with him.
I mean, look at the teams that haven't had good quarterback play and see how many of them are above 500.
Exactly.
Like you
Colts
look
come
at,
to
let's
mind.
take perfect example. The Bears the last 2 years,
Yep.
I reserve for Justin Fields this year. I'm hoping he gets another step forward or two steps or an entire echelon up. But they just haven't looked like a football team
Right.
without Justin Fields or without back through the Mitch Trubisky days, which we just talked about.
Hmm.
Quarterbacks, there's a reason that they run the offense, and there's a reason that they're so important, and you guarantee them this money. So I
Yeah.
agree with you. I don't understand the Ravens' thought on it, but that's why I'm here and not in the front office, I guess, right?
I do often wonder what would happen if somehow the guys at, did we,
Okay. After our technical
a
difficulties,
little hiccup, that's
um,
okay.
little hiccup. It's okay. It happens. Technology. Next piece of news, smaller piece of news, but I think it still matters something. My Cowboys, they added Jason Peters to the offensive line. Tyron Smith is gone until what sounds like December. He tore, I forget what it was. He tore something off the bone that he needed surgery for. That's all I know. It doesn't really matter what it is when you're playing an offensive line position, is you need it. Just a little bit more of a teaching for the rookie, who I believe is also a Tyron
Yeah,
um,
Lewis? No, that's the name of the
Lewis.
guy.
I think
Is it?
no, I
Is that
think you
right?
might be right.
Okay.
You may be right. You may be wrong, man. I don't know. I'm not. Here's the thing. As a Cowboys fan, I'll just sum up this entire news note with this. As a Cowboys fan, if it's not Zach Martin, that offensive line's got problems. Let's just be honest. I
Yeah.
mean, Zach Martin has more years in the league than he has holding penalties. So anything else, there's your problem. All right. Couple of other notes. James Robinson has been cleared for full contact and is we are being told, notes, sources, whatever, that he will play on Sunday behind Travis Etienne. More good news for fantasy owners of Rob, although maybe bad news for Travis Etienne. It
Yeah, I
depends.
was gonna say, I don't know. We'll do a couple quick things about that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he had a crazy year. Like, was he seventh round? Was he undrafted?
Rob,
Yeah.
I believe he was. I think he went undrafted.
Yeah,
UDA,
I think you're right.
I'm gonna look it up real
So
quick now.
undrafted rookie and just lights the world on fire. I mean, from efficiency standpoint, I don't think he was very efficient, but fantasy wise, he was perfectly serviceable. Um, uh, Whatever that means for the team, I don't know. Obviously, Travis, I'll go with Travis. I can never pronounce his last name very well.
Sorry,
He's,
Travis.
yeah, apologies. He is the obviously high end talent that they drafted much earlier and obviously got hurt, but he's more of a pass catcher from everything I know. So it's interesting if they'll kind of do a two-headed thing here, if they'll try to have him do all three downs and J Rob will really be change of pace or just a backup. I don't know.
And I guess staying on this point for a little bit, where do you see that combination? Because if Travis, you can see Travis being a pass catch. You could see, J Rob being more of a, like you said, change of pace. Compare those two to, say, Devin Singletary, James Cook.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I've, I would say Cook probably has better hands, but Travis has better overall talent. And then Singletary, I mean, he ended last year very well. I would say that the Singletary Cook combo overall, grading those two pieces together is probably the better
Yeah.
combo. Um,
I would agree. I'm
Okay.
just saying, Josh Allen probably makes a huge
Well,
difference
yeah.
when you're talking pass catching versus Trevor Lawrence. I think so.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
but that is interesting to see that, especially if ETN is going to be more of a pass catch. It's another tool for Mr. Lawrence. And our last, and I think our biggest piece, second biggest piece of news, we like the
Yeah.
Pittsburgh news first, but Zach Wilson, who was injured in the very first quarter of the first preseason game, is looking maybe almost sometimes going to be the starter for week 1
I
against the
still can't believe that.
Ravens. He had surgery 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Man's a monster already. It's like, God, you get all of what happened in the offseason, and then he comes out and does this. Jesus.
I know.
I think that's, if he's not ready, we would probably both, I don't know about you, I would probably think that Joe Flacco would be the go-to,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and that you're going to see probably a lot more check downs than you should, whether it be to quick hook routes, quick slant routes, or Brees Hall or Michael Carter out of the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
I would think if either one of if Flacco can't go, or even if Wilson can go, you may even see that, because I don't know what his strength will be like.
Yeah. Yeah. Flacco is quite removed from his, we'll say, Super Bowl days, or just in general. He,
Yeah, can't forget he was an MVP.
yeah, which is kind of crazy to think. I've never thought he's a great quarterback, but he obviously got the job done and took a team to the Super Bowl, and yeah,
Hey,
was an
it's his former
MVP.
team.
Yeah,
It's the
that's true.
team that he won
Oh,
the
that's
MVP
true.
with. So he
The
may know some tricks. Who knows?
the revenge game. Oh, okay. Well, maybe that changes things. No,
The revenge narrative. There you go.
yeah,
um,
I don't. Flacco starting from the wide receiver perspective, first game, I don't see much here. Brees Hall might have a great game, but I don't know how much I want of the Jets if Flacco's starting week 1.
yeah. Yeah, I'm in the same boat, and I unfortunately I shouldn't say unfortunately, because I know it's eventually going to be a good thing, but Brees Hall was my 1-1 pick in our dynasty draft.
That's right.
So my first 2 picks were Brees Hall and Kenny Pickett, and week 1 isn't looking promising for either. So in time, you build for the future. So that
Yeah.
wraps up our news. That wraps up our news segment. Give a like for the news. Give a like for the news. If there's an option for a like, leave a comment. Do whatever you got to do. We love all the feedback that we can get. Real quick, just a quick overall blanket question. Anything that you noticed from the preseason that stood out to you? I think I can't see. There weren't too many surprises to me. I guess I'll start off with that on my own. What say you?
Yeah, I don't think a whole heck of a lot stood out to me that I was like, oh, maybe I should go look into this guy a little bit more. I mean, as we know, or I don't know if you remember, I drafted Dameon Pierce. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that that sort of rumor or rumblings, again, I'll say, was kind of already there. So I wasn't too surprised in the end when all that happened. And I guess all of that, let's elaborate. So Marlon Mack coming back from Achilles, seemed like he was in contention for a possible starter. I mean, you hear a lot about Rex Burkhead and how and this is kind of funny to say, but he looks like his younger self. Well, the dude's getting kind of old there, so I don't know how he can look like his younger self, but maybe he's looking good in camp. Sure. But they have this young guy that they drafted, doesn't have the Achilles, and Dameon Pierce wins out. He was graded pretty well, both from like an NFL and next gen stats and stuff. So yeah, I took a shot on him and he won the job. Poor Marlon Mack got cut from the 53-man roster, got re-signed to the practice squad, and then
Yeah.
yesterday
Didn't
got
get
released.
he got cut. He got cut not once but twice within days.
Yeah,
Poor Marlon Mack.
yeah. That probably is one of the things that stands out the most to me for preseason. I think a lot of it, I mean, trying to think of some more rookie stuff, but like we have second year rookie QBs that they're locked in with the jobs. Fields look better. Lance has the starting job. Jimmy G re-signing is interesting.
Hmm.
Um, that I mean, it's awesome for San Francisco. They have really solid backup, and if they can find a trading partner for him, that's great. If not, they have somebody that has taken them to the Super Bowl, that has been incredibly solid and a very good game manager. If Lance, for some reason, doesn't work out, I mean, at this point, I feel like you really have to stick with Lance. But yeah,
Hmm.
uh, that's an interesting thing. But I mean, you didn't really. I don't know how much you actually saw of Jimmy G during the preseason, considering he was going through all the signing stuff.
I didn't see a whole heck of a lot. That was going to be the one that I brought up, was them re-signing Jimmy G, which kind of everybody kind of looked around and went,
Yeah,
oh, okay, all right. I didn't see that one. I thought, maybe a sign and trade, like maybe that
right.
we were waiting for the news to break an hour or two after that, oh, Jimmy G signs. So I was like, okay, so where's the trade? Like we see that maybe happening or something similar to it, but yeah, that as a secondary option to Trey Lance instead of the other way around. I don't,
Right.
and security is the one word that comes to mind when you think
Hmm.
about that move. So I don't hate it. Damian Pierce, on the other hand, to talk about, go back to your first point, it he he's gonna be something if Houston actually can get an offense rolling.
Hmm.
As someone who had their hands deep in Houston's backfield, if it doesn't, it can go south real quick.
Yeah.
Last year I had, the three-headed, we're not even going to call it monster, we'll call it three-headed snake, that was David Johnson and Rex Burkhead and Philip Lindsay.
Right.
And none of it was good or dependable on any given week. So from a fantasy standpoint, it's good that you can tell who's going to be the RB1, and will it build after time? Yes.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, a lot of the other stuff was, looking around the league. It wasn't. I'm not going to say a run of the mill, but it was a little bit of less climactic than of a preseason than we would have normally expected. So
Yeah. I mean, an interesting stat, and I don't know exactly, but Damian Pierce was the most efficient running back in preseason. I think yards per carry, 9.8 average. So he had quite the preseason. I mean, it's preseason. You can't read into it too much, but I would
right,
imagine he'll be the 1-2, and Rex will probably be the third down guy, but we'll see.
sounds good to me. I don't disagree with any of it. Bringing
Yeah.
up on our, we will go forward into our Thursday night preview, because this is a big, big matchup to start. Most of them usually are to start week one, but Rams and Bills. On a line note, the Bills are 2.5-point favorites, a 52.5-point over under. Las Vegas apparently seems to think that the Stafford and Allen are just gonna chuck it and it's gonna work, and it probably will be that way. So first off, let's start off with expectations real quick, because I totally agree with a 52.5-point over under.
Mm.
I think I would probably edge towards the over, but if I would not be surprised if it went, even if you saw Bobby Wagner and Leonard Floyd and the linebacker crew anywhere in LA really get to, maybe not necessarily get to Josh Allen, but just pressure him
Hmm.
into some three and outs. And then Von Miller is playing his old team, and he didn't want to sign him, or he didn't want to match the offer that the Bills gave him. So I think he's got something out. So I would say we're probably in the range of 56 to 57 if I was to guess, but that's really going into a blind season. There's really nothing to base it off of other than a feeling. So, your thoughts on this game on Thursday night?
Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome matchup to kick off the season. Two incredible teams that, I mean, I don't want to spoiler alert, but I feel like the Bills probably make it to the Super Bowl this year, but we'll see. They're just a solid team. I mean, Rams were there obviously last
Hot
year, and
take.
yeah, yeah, very hot take. No, the Rams, adding Allen Robinson is huge. They obviously could make a Super Bowl run again. The only thing and the Stafford arm stuff does kind of scare me a little bit. From what I've been reading is it's going to be a season-long issue. They're going to have to stay on top of it. So that probably means not practicing as much. That probably means a lot of medical attention throughout the season to make sure that whatever they're doing for him is working. So does that mean he can't sling the ball as far? I don't know. That would really change things. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's the first. This is the first that I have heard that it has been a season long issue, but I'm not surprised by it. It's an elbow. It's not something that you can exactly take time off of as a quarterback on your throwing arm for the most part. Anyway, there's a lot of other changes that not having Andrew Whitworth matters. I really can't I can't stress that enough. Having I think it's Noteboom is his last name, which I keep saying.
It is.
I keep saying Noteboom. But yeah, having him in replace of Andrew, and especially now you're facing someone who used to be, like I said, I can't stress Von Miller enough. When you sign a 6-year deal to play until you're almost 39 years old, there's some serious talent still there. He's not fallen off the cliff like a lot of other edges and a lot of other defensive ends probably are or will. I think that makes a difference. And if he's not throwing it, maybe that plays better into his elbow. If you're trying to you're not throwing those 40-yard chuckers, great. Allen Robinson, you can throw, run a 10-yard slant and hit him. You're going to run into Bobby Wagner then, but or not Bobby Wagner, Matt Milano, excuse me.
Yes.
But it's something that may actually work if they can play it smart. Another offensive point to that is how well is that line going to block for Cam Akers? Because this is where we're going to see Cam do his first 60 to 70 to 80% touch game. I think I don't see any reason why he wouldn't get the bell cow work here. So going the offensive route, both of them are going to just run, like not literally run, but just go. I feel like Stafford's a little bit more set up with Robinson for short passes. So I like the Rams in this matchup myself.
Yeah. Actually, so real quick, going back to Cam, it's interesting you say that because I drafted Cam and then missed out on his entire first year. Or no, how did it play out? Did he not play his first year because he was behind someone and then he got injured his second year? Is that right?
I believe I'm almost positive he got injured his second year, but I don't remember why he didn't play as much as first.
Yeah, I think that.
Who was there? Was that Gurley? He wasn't behind Gurley. That was a year after Gurley left.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna have to research this because it's interesting to know. It's interesting. Like I said, it's his first time out, but you're right. You're right on it.
And so that was also an Achilles injury, and so I traded him away. Because I've been hearing a lot of McVay always goes with the bell cow, to your point, but Henderson has been decent when he's been the number one guy, and I've been hearing a lot of we have 2 number 1 running backs, and I've been hearing a lot of we're going to use both of these guys. I don't know if it's going to be a hot hand thing or if it's going to be we're literally going to have a committee. So that was one of the reasons I decided to trade him away. And I mean, it was a big deal. I put in a lot of, not a lot, but a couple of first round picks and I got JT back. I mean, there was other stuff in the deal, Dak, etc. But that was one of the reasons I got rid of Cam was the Achilles injury, the stuff I'd been hearing about Henderson picking away at what he might have been if Cam is or is not the bell cow. So, well, yeah, that'll be interesting to see game 1. Who's how they handle that running situation.
I can't wait for the Rams side as far as just the entire offense, because like I said, from Stafford's elbow to how are you going to run to the left side? How are you entirely going to run that way with Noteboom, who's just he's not Whitworth. I'm sorry.
No.
And then to see how Allen Robinson and Cooper Kupp kind of shape up and form I guess is the best term. And then you still have Van Jefferson is still hiding back there. And did they sign is there another wide receiver that I'm missing, or is that might be either way? It's the entire offense to me it's the same, but it's different, if that makes any sense. I feel like there's moving parts more to that than there normally are. So on the other side of the ball, we have the Buffalo Bills. As you have already noted, you think they're going to the Super Bowl, which is not a bad take at all. But you start off with a returning Josh Allen, who is just, I mean, he's a fantasy monster to start off with, but it doesn't hurt when you have Stephon Diggs, who I think is really going to have another 150 target season. Gabriel Davis is emerging as the second option in Buffalo. Jamison Crowder has joined, who is a veteran presence, just like in the same realm as Stephon Diggs. And then more towards the backfield, you have Devin Singletary, who is just going to be your lead running back. Again, really good closed out last season as an RB3 over the last 5 weeks or something, which is absolutely insane. And you'd think on the surface that by drafting James Cook, that would be damaged, but Cook is more of a passing back. Singletary is just your running, flat out running, and doesn't pass much. So, what are your thoughts on the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that Singletary take. I don't think James Cook is going to eat into what he has been doing and how he finished the end of last year, unless we're wrong about James Cook and he takes those first and second down roles. But that's not anything any of us have been hearing, and that's not what he did in college. So, yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, Allen and Diggs, that combo, their rapport, they really they have a good connection. So that's going to continue. I think honestly, it may get even better with Gabe Davis emerging. Maybe there's a little more focus on him from some of the DBs. So maybe Diggs gets a little more there. I do see Davis kind of becoming, although they have Dawson Knox, I was going to say Davis is a big guy. I see him kind of becoming a touchdown guy. So him and Knox are probably going to be where the majority of the touchdowns are going, aside from running plays, aside from Allen running it in, Diggs making a long play, whatever. And then Crowder, as you mentioned, he's had some good seasons. He had one with the Jets first half of the season. He was killing it with the Jets. He was with Washington. He had some good seasons there. But last season they kicked off with Emmanuel Sanders, and they actually used him decently the first handful of games. So Crowder stepping into that role, I think he's definitely capable to pick up where Sanders left off and really help this team fill in a piece that throughout the rest of the season was not there. So I think all those guys, I mean, as with any team, stay healthy. I think that's sort of where I'm coming from, which is hard for me to say Bills going to the Super Bowl because I'm a Pats fan. But if all those pieces do what we're saying here, that's where I'm seeing this Super Bowl run.
There's a lot of voices that echo that, and it's not like I said earlier, it's a bit of a hot take, but it is. It's pretty accurate, I think. At least as far as expectations, they have pieced the roster together. The only thing that is going to be interesting to see is when Tre'Davious White comes back for that secondary. Him getting injured, which I believe that was the postseason last year. He got injured.
I think so.
Set his timeline, into this year, and that is what it is. But other than that, it's tough to argue against the Bills. They look on paper studs, absolute studs. So, what's your take fantasy wise for? And I guess I'll be more specific, more or less for DFS. If you're playing DFS, who are a couple of maybe even we're here called the fantasy flyer. Who's your flyer for this game?
Ooh, flyer for the game. So I guess I'm between A-Rob and Davis. I mean, they're not like unknown names, but they're not the number ones on the team. So, um, what DraftKings does the like 5-man roster with like a captain or whatever.
Yep. For a
Throw
single
one
game.
for a single game, exactly. Which, yeah, Thursday Night Football. So throw
Right.
somebody, like, throw one of those guys in your captain, and if they hit, you're going to be in a good spot.
I won't go. I'm gonna step out on a limb, and this is a big limb because there's we kind of talked about the other two in front of them more so, but I really honestly think Van Jefferson might be somebody who I will throw in the lineup. He is cheap. It's going to allow you in these five, like you said, these captain lineups as they're appropriately called, I believe. It's going to allow you to combine an Allen and a Diggs. It's going to allow you to combine a Cup and a Stafford, which if Jefferson is, and Jamison Crowder wouldn't be a bad option either. But I see in correspondence, the fourth person in this lineup, I see Dawson Knox being much more of a target than, say, Tyler Higbee. Not to say that Tyler Higbee can't catch or play or anything like that, but I just see as part of the offense, Dawson Knox is more gelled. And so I think that Crowder loses a little bit to Knox in that scenario, where I don't think you're going to see as much on whoever the wide receiver 3 is, and I think it's going to be Van Jefferson, who's going to end up with a. So I see that as being a little bit of a sneaky. I don't know the exact stat off my hand, but I believe he had I want to say it was somewhere in the realm of 25 or 30 catches in the last like 6 weeks last year, which is good for your wide receiver 3. You still had Odell there at the time, so that's my take on it. So a very interesting game. Who do you think is going to win? What's your final score?
I've been flip-flopping on this. I don't know if it's my excitement around the Rams, which we kind of alluded to earlier, in terms of just like the team that they have put together, with A-Rob, and I'm gonna go Bills. I think that unfortunately the Rams kind of have the Super Bowl sitting on their shoulder, and maybe they come out a little cocky. Also, Stafford's elbow is still kind of poking at me.
That's fair. That is very fair. I will also go Bills. My final score, I'll give it because I was in this range. I'm thinking it's gonna be. I'm going more 34-23 or 34-24. I'll say 34-24 just because it makes a little more sense than 23.
A 10-point gap. All right, I think I'm a little closer. I was in the like 31-27-ish range, something like that.
That was where I started. Where I started. Yeah. So it was literally 31-27. I said, you know what? I'm going to swap 3 points over. So that's a good one. I like that. So be interesting to see on Thursday Night Football how that game unfolds, especially if it's first one of the season. Energy is always high. So on to a new segment. We're going to close out our first episode with a couple of newer games I haven't seen played. First one we're going to do is a game we like to call 4 Downs. Easiest way, both me and Taylor will give the other person 4 statements. The other person has to rank them from most likely to happen to least likely to happen. It's a very, very, very easy way to get some information across between the teams. I will pass along the duty of answering. Well, I'll take the duty of answering. I'll pass along the questions to you, so you get to go first. You can ask me anything you want.
All right. We'll start off a little. I mean, I go broad and then I get very specific. But so, who do you think wins the conference, the AFC?
Entire AFC?
Yeah, not any of the divisions, just the entire conference.
I mean, we're going to sound like a broken record since it's been the last 10 minutes, but the Bills.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else on paper who is set up like the Bills are? I just don't. Yeah. Offensively, defensively, if they can go. So let's say Tre'Davious White, and I know that sounds like I'm basing my whole decision on one player. But that defense and that's any secondary, if you want to beat the Bills, you're probably going to have to outthrow them, or at least keep pace with them in a certain extent. If you're looking at 280 to 300 yards a week at a Josh Allen, you kind of have to mirror that, unless you're, maybe Derrick Henry putting 200 up on the ground.
Right.
I think if he comes back week 6, and if the Bills are even 4-2, I mean, what are they going to lose from there? 5 games total, for the season.
Yeah.
So I see the Bills as being really being the AFC winner. If you were to say, well, you can't choose the Bills because you've talked about them so much, it really doesn't look like it would be. That's actually a much harder question if you were to say that to me, as to who would be the next best team, because just on paper they look so dang good.
I know.
Part of me wants to say it's someone from the AFC West, and that's a whole discussion in and of itself. That is a whole monster that, I guess I'll put it this way. It's probably going to be AFC East versus AFC West in the conference game.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think it'll be the Chiefs, but I couldn't tell you. I couldn't, if I had to throw it, I'd have as good a time throwing a dart at a dartboard with those 4 teams on it.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, the AFC West is pretty loaded. That's an interesting division. And I keep forgetting that Russ is on the Broncos. So,
It's a new team.
It is.
It's a new team.
Yeah. I mean, they basically didn't have Sutton at all last year, maybe 1 game. And yeah, Judy's got to prove himself, but with Russ there, yeah, I'm hoping they take a huge step forward. But I think outside of the Bills, I would go Chargers.
Okay. My finger was there. Your second?
Is Trevor Lawrence a top 10 QB at the end, fantasy-wise, at the end of the season?
Trevor Lawrence, a fantasy top 10 QB. So when you ask me that question, the first thing I think is, can I name 10 who have higher ceilings than him? And the answer is yes, which would mean the answer to your question is no. And I don't think I need to list 10. I think we can all kind of I could probably put 14 in between that realistically have a higher ceiling than he does this year.
Yeah.
Next year might be a different question depending on how this year goes, but this year, no.
Yeah, I think, and the reason I asked that, a lot of people after seeing what happened last year are probably like, Trevor Lawrence, I don't want to touch him. I would say he could flirt with top 12, but to your point, I think he's probably more in the range of top 15. I think he's being ranked in a lot of places 18, between 16 and 20, around there. But I think they take a huge step forward. I mean, the coaching is just vastly different this year. He's got a much better coaching system for him to develop and him to take a huge step forward. I mean, beyond that, all QBs year 2 usually, if they're good, take a big step forward. And he was the number 1 pick. So you got to hope that was not for what's the phrase? Not for not for
not for nothing.
Not for nothing. Wow. Yeah. Not for nothing.
Or all for naught. That's another good one.
There we go. I was putting them together.
It's all right. He got held up, and I think this is not a hot take at all. I think everybody in the NFL, once it got to like week 12 or week 13, we all kind of looked at each other and we all said he got held up by Urban Meyer. There's so much drama surrounded that team, and that's not where you grow. So I don't see him as a top 10 this year, but like you said, 16 to 18, maybe even 20, or where, that's fine by me.
Yeah.
Your third.
This one's kind of chalky, but does Mixon finish top 10?
So similar thought process, right? So is there 10 that are better than Mixon? and the answer isn't as clear.
Right.
Strength of schedule matters. I think, given how he performed last year, I think looking at the Bengals and just immediately saying, "Oh, they're throwing it to Jamar Chase, they're throwing it to T. Higgins," I I don't think that's fair, because he put up, I mean, Boyd, Higgins, and Chase. I mean, they combined for like 250 catches or something last year, something silly like that. 230, 250 catches between the three of them.
Yeah.
And that's not even targets, that's just catches. But Mixon was RB, what, 7, 8? So
Something like that.
yeah, I say yes. I say he is a top 10.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where my head is at. It's definitely he'll walk the line, and there'll be some frustrating games, but I think he pulls it off. I think he pulls it off. All right, so this one I hadn't quite figured out the wording, but we now have Devontae Adams with the Raiders. He obviously with Rodgers was phenomenal. Rodgers is a completely different caliber of quarterback to Carr, but they're college buddies, they're buddies. They have been keeping in touch. So does Adams, I'm trying to think, he is always around like what, 150 targets?
Generally,
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think
plus or minus.
yeah, plus or minus. I don't know. Do you think 150 targets is in the realm of possibility for Adams? I mean, Renfro,
So
Waller. Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
a very good question. Um, does he keep up that same pattern
Right.
for when switching teams? The short answer is no. And the reason for that is exactly who you just said. Unless Hunter Renfro takes a dip, I mean, I think he averaged somewhere in the realm of 9 targets a game last year, 8 targets.
Something like that, yeah.
Granted, a wide receiver 1 at the time, definitely a 2 now. Waller took a step back, I'd say, last year compared to 2020. But you can't shake a stick at either one of them. I see 110 to 120 without a doubt. I don't know if 150 is in the cards. I don't see, without injuries. If you're
Yeah.
talking about everybody's playing 17 games, and you got a healthy core out there, I don't see 150. Does that mean he can't catch 9, 10, 11, 12 touchdowns and put up 1,000 yards? No, he probably will. That's Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
But I don't know. 150 just sounds a little high to me, so I'm going to say no to that one.
Yeah.
And I'll probably eat my words by about week 8 when he's got 700 yards and 90 catches already. So
Right.
it is what it is if that's the case. But I would reserve on that one. So
Yeah.
150 catches, man. To have Diggs do it last year and to see Adams on that same list, I mean, you're getting some of the greats. So
Yeah.
I don't go wrong with that. So very good for, if you're listing them in order of what is most likely, I think Bills winning the AFC is most likely. Mixon top 10 is the next. Adams 153rd, and Trevor Lawrence would be the least likely to make top 10 out of those.
Yeah.
I think that's how I would word those. So mostly entirely AFC. That is all yours. That's right. You had AFC, I had NFC. That explains why this one doesn't fit what I wrote. That explains why that one doesn't fit. Okay, so we'll start off with this one. Going to you as it's your turn to take the hot seat. NFC East. I'll just go out with I think the most hot topic question. The Eagles. Can the Eagles beat the Cowboys in the NFC East?
Yeah. I mean, if it's just can they, or do you mean like do they beat them out in the conference?
I mean, in the conference, do they
Okay.
win the
Do they win the
NFC
conference?
East?
Gotcha. Uh, I gotta go no. Um, Dak, CD. I mean, Gallup, Gallup is still, he's not determined 100% for week one, but Zeke, I think people missed the fact that he was actually still pretty solid last year. He was still pretty consistent, and I think he had some injury issues that went under the radar that he was battling the entire season. Um, and I can't remember if he had an off-season surgery, but there was something about injuries, and he is in a significantly better spot. Those guys are just so solid. I mean, obviously Hurts fantasy wise was really great, but football wise was interesting last year. Um, I mean, they now have AJ Brown, which if they if Hertz and Brown have a solid connection, I mean, they're good friends from what I understand. Smith is very good coming into his second year. Very good number two. So it's not like they're a slouch of a team, but I would rather have Dak as my QB. And as we've stated before, this is a very QB dependent, for lack of a better word, league. So yeah, I'm Cowboys.
You're Cowboys. That makes me feel good because I'm getting scared looking at these Eagles and looking
I
at this
know.
roster. So
The crazy thing is they do somehow end up pulling it out sometimes. I mean, Super Bowl against the Patriots is a prime example. Like they were the underdogs
mhm.
and they
By a mile, they were the underdogs. So
yeah,
it wasn't really close.
yeah, and that was a great win by them.
Yes. So you are just to rephrase this in a second. You are picking the Cowboys to be the first repeat winner of the NFC East since 2004.
Wow, I did not realize that. I guess I am.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Because that hasn't happened since 2004, and it was the Eagles who did it. So
Okay.
interesting take there. Number two, last year the Cardinals won their first. I mean, really, they won 7 of their first 8 games. They probably could have won the 8th game. Would have been undefeated up until almost the midpoint of the season.
Hmm.
Then Cliff Kingsbury happened. Something happened. They forgot how football throw work. I don't
Right.
know. And they lost 5 of their last 8. It's okay. They were then defeated in the postseason. But as far as their schedule goes, can the Cardinals, who were on pace to win 13 games last season, win 13 games this season?
I haven't looked at their schedule, but I would say yes. Um, Hollywood, as his nickname is, Marquise Brown.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge
Big
piece coming
change.
over. Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, the Kyler Murray stuff in the off season was really weird. Um, like I'll, I don't even. I guess I'll get into a little bit, but like he basically like took down the fact that he was on the team or something. I don't know. He did a bunch of weird stuff on social
Something
media.
social media shaky.
Yes, yeah. Where he basically like wrote off the team or like not on the team anymore or whatever. Um, and then they straightened it all out and now they're Gucci. We'll see. I don't know.
Do you
So
want to know the schedule before you give me the answer? Because I have it.
uh sure. Yeah, lay it out
Real,
for me.
real quick. All right. So we have Chiefs, Raiders, Rams, Panthers, Eagles, Seahawks, Saints, Vikings, Seahawks again, Rams, 49ers, Chargers, Patriots, Broncos, Buccaneers, Falcons, 49ers. So interdivisionally, they're playing the AFC West, if you didn't catch that, which
Mm,
we had just talked about being a little more
yeah,
stout. So I think that I would say that would influence my decision, but
that
it's your on the
does
clock.
drastically. I honestly counted like 7 to 9 games where they were probably going to win. So wow, yeah, that does change my answer drastically. So now I'm a no. I would put them
Okay.
in the, yeah, I would put them, oh, worst case scenario, we'll say for them, probably around 7 wins. Best case, 10 or 11.
All right. Not 13. That's what I
No,
heard. And
not
I agree.
13.
I agree. knowing they play the AFC West makes, because that's 3 games you lose, in my opinion. I see that 3 games that you lose. Chargers. I see Chargers, Raiders, and Broncos.
Yeah.
That's just me. Number 3, the Packers have an outstanding record in conference. With the changes that happened in Green Bay, both defensively and most importantly offensively, and the drama that has surrounded Aaron Rodgers during the offseason, hopefully calm down a little bit. Yeah, right. Fair fact. Do the Packers go 7-1 or better in conference?
In conference.
Excuse me, I did that math wrong. 5-1. They can't play themselves. They play 6 games against the other teams.
Yeah.
Write that note down before I make myself look like an a-hole on the next show.
Wait, in conference or in division?
In conference, or in division, excuse me. You're right. Okay. See, I messed up the entire question twice. Fantasy Flyer. You won't get this type of entertainment anywhere else. 5-1 in division. So out of the 6 games they will inevitably play against the Lions, the Bears, and the Vikings, will they be 5-1 or 6-0?
They won't be 6-0. But apart from the Vikings, they have the Bears and the Lions. I mean, the Lions aren't bad. They have some pieces, but I'm going to make the assumption that they beat the Bears and the Lions in all their games, and the Vikings would be the only time. So yeah, I could see them going 5-1.
You see that? Okay. That's a good, I kind of agree. The Vikings added, here's the interesting part, and that's why I agree with your not 6-0. The Vikings added, who's the defensive, there's a lineman. There's Danielle Hunter on the left side, and I forget who they added on the right. And it's going to bother me. But all I know is that when I see the combo, I'm literally thinking to myself, oh, quarterback's in trouble because one of them's getting to you. And I can't for the life of me remember. I've looked at so many dang names over the last 4 days, as you know, with my power rankings for our Dynasty League. I'm going to look it up real quick because I am very interested. Danielle Hunter by himself is a scary human being. Grab up their depth chart here. But, man, like that entire Vikings team looks a lot better. Danielle Hunter. Jordan Hicks. Oh, and Zadarius Smith. They added both.
Okay.
Jordan Hicks and Zadarius Smith. So, obviously, Hicks would be more of an edge. But Zadarius, as a linebacker, coming from the Packers themselves, he would want to take off some Packer heads. So
yeah.
That makes a little bit more sense. And my last one, number 4, it surrounds the GOAT, Tom Brady. Does Tom Brady get another NFC conference championship? Does he go to the Super Bowl in what is expected to be his final year?
I'm not gonna lie. I still have fond feelings for TB12. So I want to say yes, but I don't think it happens. There's been the weirdness with him not being in camp, which I don't know if you've heard anything about that, but I heard that he may have been on like the Masked Singer or whatever, and that was why, and that's why nobody's like talking about it or whatever. Who knows? If that's actually the case, that makes me feel a little better. But if that's not the case, something weird was there. And then, I mean, he always does weird stuff like that. So maybe I shouldn't even consider this any relevant information. But Gronk's gone. Godwin starting off the season a little rusty. Their offensive line has been shook these past couple of weeks. They've lost, I'm not even going to remember all the names, but they've lost like 3 people. I
mean, I know one of them retired, Ali Marpet, who was huge guard. He retired, and I mean, my experience with Ali Marpet goes to watching those 2 or 3 games with the Bucks the last 3 years and Madden, but he looked, and from what it looked like on his play, he was stout for both pass block and run.
Yeah.
So
So yeah,
that was huge by itself.
one guy retiring, and then they've had a couple of injuries. That can't bode well for Brady in the pocket doing what he does. He's not a guy that can. He's done it a couple times every once in a while, but him getting out of the pocket, scrambling, making a run, that's not his game. He stays in the pocket and makes those passes that he has meticulously thought about for the 5 seconds leading up to it or whatever, So
Right.
that worries me. Yeah, and then that doesn't bode well for the run game either. So yeah, I don't know. I don't see it happening.
Fair enough. Fair enough. How would you rank those 4 things from most likely to least likely of happening? Cowboys winning the NFC East. Cardinals, we'll say winning 11 games. We'll adjust it to the high end of where you said. The Packers 5-1 in division, or Tom not making the Super Bowl.
I'll go Packers most likely, followed by the Cowboys, and then the Cardinals, and then TB12.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So that was our very first game of 4 downs. We will play them a little bit more as well as we go through. Probably going to be in most of our Monday, Tuesday, our early week shows. Our final segment is the name game. Taylor, I'm going to pass this one over to you so you can lead from the front on this one.
All right.
So we got about 6 minutes left.
Yeah. All right. Let me pull some stuff up here. So this one, and it sticks out more to me from a dynasty standpoint, but I think it's definitely still relevant outside of dynasty. So you have the aging Aaron Jones, who is on his second contract with the Packers, and you have AJ Dillon, who is a monster of a man. And last year they were pretty close to 50-50, and this year they will at least be 50-50. Aaron Jones gets hurt, I don't know, 1 to 3 times a season. So, and AJ Dillon has done the most with it, but he's still, let's see, he's ranked like, I don't know, 50th overall. He's the RB 23. So his ADP, his average is 50.5. So my question to you is, would you rather have AJ Dillon or J.K. Dobbins?
So we kind of brushed over this in our pre-video meeting, and I'll shorten it up because we are a little short on time, but I'll make it very easy. J.K. Dobbins, and not to bring him up in any more reason, but Gus Edwards, they're both returning from torn ACLs. Only 2 running backs in this century have returned from ACLs to 1,000-yard seasons. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards probably will not join the likes of Jamal Charles and Adrian Peterson. However, A.J. Dillon is also, and like you said, it's probably a shared role. If you're not talking dynasty and you're talking 1 year, I have more faith with a quarterback who can't run behind me and me being able to run an A.J. Dillon than J.K. Dobbins, who also, although it's a running offense, I still feel he's going to lose some to Lamar Jackson. So I would say A.J. Dillon.
Yeah, same. So Dobbins, for everyone else, is RB 24. ADP average is 52. So going right behind him. Would you rather have Dillon or Josh Jacobs?
Non-dynasty.
Yeah, we'll stick with redraft.
Redraft, Dillon is so young, but again, that split back. Like, who else? You lose Kenyon Drake. Who else is Brandon Bolden isn't gonna take 15 carries a game. You're doing redraft.
They have the rookie Zamir White, but yeah, he
I don't see him.
much.
Yeah, he hasn't really shown promise in camp. I would say I would say Josh Jacobs here. Dillon isn't a bad choice. So I'm just going to say that. Like you said, injuries to Aaron Jones only make it harder to make this choice because Josh Jacobs is now going to have to deal with the probably mostly passing offense that is Las Vegas.
Exactly.
With Devontae Adams. So that makes it that much tougher. 50% of A.J. Dillon that might blossom to 60 or 65 over the season, or Josh Jacobs, who's the bell cow in Las Vegas and a lower stance of the roster because of how the offense has changed. It's so tough. So
Yeah.
I kind of get why the ADPs are so close.
Yeah. Jacobs ADP is 48.5 on average. Yeah, for me, so McDaniels is usually a committee guy. And it's yeah, like you said, it's gonna be a pass heavy offense. So I think I may still go Dillon there, but I don't disagree at all with going Jacobs. We'll throw one more out there. Elijah Mitchell or AJ Dillon.
See, this is another one where if you get injured, it's like San Francisco is willing to sign the guy out of section 8, row 9, seat 14 to be your running back. Or at least it seems that way because it seems like they have a new running back every, Jeff Wilson, JaMychal Hasty, Trey Sermon, Elijah Mitchell, Raheem Mostert. Like you're running out of people.
Yeah.
But Elijah Mitchell was much more productive last year. I would go to Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah. I don't hate that at all either. I guess the injury concern and the fact that Shanahan just like pulls these guys out of nowhere. They have Tyrion David Price or whatever his name is.
Yep.
And I think go ahead.
There's your guy this year.
Right.
Yeah, Mitchell misses 2 quarters, and all of a sudden he's in a committee with Tyrion Davis Price.
Yeah.
And Jeff Wilson, like
And
all of a sudden we got to reset. We got to reset everything. So
yeah, the guy that they actually did sign to a decent contract last year. So
yeah.
All right. Yeah, we're wrapping up here, but let's not go in depth on these guys. Just first instinct, I'll throw 2 more out there.
Okay.
Brees
Lightning
Hall,
round.
Brees Hall or AJ Dillon, and Cam Akers or AJ Dillon.
Brees Hall over Dillon. Bell cow roll, very easy. And I'll say AJ Dillon because of your comments about Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson earlier.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Evidence over what people say.
Right. I think I'm in a similar boat. But all those guys other than Dobbins are going ahead of AJ Dillon. So it's just kind of Cam Akers being average 37 ADP. So something to think about while you're drafting.
Always working on the draft game, and we'll continue to work on our fantasy game as well as maybe our show game a little bit more. Maybe I can trip over my words a little less. Probably going to see a second show later this week. We got a long list for Sunday, but for the first episode of Fantasy Flyer, I am Derek. That is Taylor. We're going to wrap it up for you guys. Take care, and we'll see you on the fly with your fantasy lineups.
Peace out.
Peace.